Yeah, we are soaking it in today. The Kings are the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, just like everyone thought before the season started, right?
I planned this out. I said no play-in, playoffs, and possibly championship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really feel that way. It's okay.
I never felt that way, no.
It is crazy. Deuce Mason, Morgan Reagan, and our guest in studio. If you know him on social media, or if you don't, you should follow him. That local guy on Twitter, the one and only, Jrue is here.
Yeah!
He also co-host in the Film Room, Sacramento Kings podcast, does amazing work with Skylar. So appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, Skylar and my good friend Fish Guy Abe.
Yes, Fish Guy, of course.
So shout out to Abe. He said he would harm me physically if I didn't shout him out.
No, and that's my bad. I failed to do that. I'm very familiar with Fish Guy. Every time he's in our Discord, I drop the fish on him. He's great.
Aww. Yeah. Well, we don't want you to get hurt.
Yes, I needed to get that out of the way first. But thank you so much for having me on. This is an honor and a privilege, and I'm just so happy that you two are back on the airwaves.
Oh my God!
Haven't seen both of you in forever, even at Kings games.
I saw you last game. You were talking to when you come near the media section, you have all these groupies? I think media groupies.
No, I'm just there to get my parking validation. For Frankie.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Frankie hooked you up.
Yeah.
No, I did see. I couldn't, come say hi at that time, but I appreciate you being here, and we were just talking to Chris Watkins about you coming in, and he had mentioned that Monty McNair was asking about your Twitter account, the Kings general manager, who's like, "Wait, this guy breaks down hoops. He's talking about pick and roll coverages, talking about our play sets, but at the same time trolls a lot." When you found that out, what do you think?
My media thought was we live in an insane timeline, and this is a simulation. And the Kings being 38-26 and second place in the Western Conference in the month of March further confirms that. So yeah, that was my thought. It was pretty wild. There were some specific tweets that apparently he pointed out where he was just like, "I'm so confused because he'll do this and then he'll break down a hammer play, 5 minutes later."
Yeah, because apparently if you could break down the hammer play, you can't have any sense of humor, right?
Yeah,
right? You must be just focused strictly on basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to you before King season on our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you?
No, I'm just laughing. It's so true.
I just realized I'm icing you out.
Oh, no.
It's International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Please, the men.
To you, Mo, and everybody, all the women out there.
We're going to acknowledge, say happy, but let the men talk.
Yeah. I'll just ask a question whenever it's needed. I'll ask a question, but can you pass the question to me?
I will for sure allow you an opportunity.
Thank you
in a second.
so much.
Just kidding. When we had him on our podcast before the season, remember he was saying, "I think the Kings have the potential to have a top 5 offense." Did you expect it to be this good though?
Yeah, I actually went back and listened to that episode yesterday, just to listen to some of the stuff that we were saying, and when it comes to the offense especially, boy, did we sell them short, because this is, as of right now, the best offense in not just the league, but in NBA history if you go by offensive rating. And that was probably the one thing on the season preview that I got to do with you both that we absolutely sold this team short on.
That's it's wild to even think about that moment, because I don't know if I said this during that time, but I'm sure I did. I probably challenged back with, and tell me if you heard this by any chance. It takes, I don't know, it takes a team a little bit of time to mesh, to develop together. And I mean, you see that throughout sports, unless you are just adding a whole bunch of all-stars, which now the Kings ended up having 2 all-stars this season.
Right.
But unless you're adding a whole bunch of all-stars and big names, it never seems like you're going to take that leap that quick. The Kings took that leap and more this season and totally debunked everything that I said about a team needing time to mesh.
It's okay. I don't think many people were right about the Kings.
I mean, Jrue was pretty close.
I mean, he was pretty high on the offense, but I mean, I just think it's been crazy to see how great it's been. The amount of 130 plus point games, even against Minnesota, where I was disappointed with how that game went. But I'm they still put up 134 in that game, and they didn't play great and still had a chance to win.
Yeah. Morgan, when I did mention that the potential for a top 5 offense was there, you were kind of like, okay. Measured intrigue would be the way that I describe it. You weren't gonna commit fully to being excited, but you were like, okay, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
look, this team, and this was another thing we mentioned on that that season preview was we all agreed we're done winning games 140 to 139.
Yeah, totally done over that.
Totally over that, right? Yeah, no, we only win games 176 to 175 now, apparently. Look, I think the big thing was the team building that Monte McNair did over the offseason. This team, if you're going to build an offense around De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, you have to have proper spacing. The Kings had none of that last season. And then, of course, those two guys got hurt at the end of the season. You didn't get too big of a sample size with those two together. But you add Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray coming in and being one of the 10 best shooters in the league, which is it obviously was a massive revelation that I don't think anybody really saw coming. He's on pace to shatter the rookie 3-point record for 3-point field goals made by Donovan Mitchell. Look, you put those two guys, Malik coming off the bench, Harrison Barnes, obviously consummate pro. He's always good to shoot high 30s from three, even though he got off to a rough start to the season. Look, you space the floor enough and you bend and stretch defenses enough, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are going to get whatever they want, whenever they want, practically. And that's kind of been the case. And Domantas Sabonis, on top of the fact that he's so good around the rim and has been, on medium volume, been shooting pretty okay from outside. He's just, we talked about this before the season. He's a high level processor that feels and just plays the game at his pace, knows what he's best at, knows that if he's willing to pass the ball and to set guys up, they will have the incentive to cut and move. And that's why this offense is at a 118.6 offensive rating.
Insane.
And I know we keep talking about how, Monty and the roster construction, and then obviously how this team is led by Mike Brown and the offensive, defensive strategy, techniques, whatever. But De'Aaron Fox and Domas Sabonis as individuals have taken their game to a whole nother level. And I think, when we talk about Keegan Murray being the shooter that he is, no one was expecting that, but we also hadn't seen him in the NBA before. With De'Aaron, we have seen so many times year after year flashes, zero consistency with it, being like, man, does he have this? Does he not have it? Maybe he's just never going to be a number one guy. Domas Sabonis, if you were watching Pacers games, I mean, you saw sometimes what he was doing with his dominance, but this just has a whole different flow to it. And those guys bringing their game to another tier of play in the NBA has just been absolutely incredible. Yeah,
it's for me mostly, it's definitely those two guys. I mean, for the first 44, 45 minutes, run your stuff, right? Like give Sabonis the ball, have them just grab and go, set up the offense, run your DHOs and stuff like that, and just do your thing. And when things break down or when you need a big basket down the stretch, give the ball to De'Aaron Fox. He's by far the best clutch player in the league this year. And those two guys have elevated one another so much. Sabonis obviously giving De'Aaron a legit, 1A, 1B. I mean, those guys are interchangeable, 1A, 1B, but giving him another star that he can lean on has been huge for him. And you see it on both ends with De'Aaron Fox. He's locked in defensively most nights. And then on offense, he doesn't have to carry the team for the first 45 minutes of the game. That's why he's got the legs underneath him at the end of the game to make big plays and make clutch shots. So, those two guys obviously together. Monte McNair, his first big move was giving De'Aaron Fox that max, right? Well, last trade deadline, he took a ton of heat for it, but he doubled down with De'Aaron, has since tripled down with him. And all three, the two guys involved in the trade, and then the guy by extension involved in that trade, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Tyrese Halliburton, they're all all-stars. So it's all worked out.
And I think it's helped Miles Turner too.
Yeah,
so
100%.
It's wild how things work out. I want to go back to what you're saying about De'Aaron's defense, because I think we've all looked at De'Aaron and thought, okay, he has the potential to be a really good defensive player. I talk to Doug Christie about that all the time. When Doug was doing analyst work, he's like, I think he can be an all NBA level defensive player. Mike Brown's kind of said that, especially when he got the job. What has been different for him this year? What have you noticed defensively about what he's been able to do?
Well, the number one thing is just engagement. He would just, there were possessions last year where he kind of had to take some possessions off, even before last season, right? There was just too much of the offensive workload put on his shoulders. And so he just didn't have the legs underneath him to play defense for a full, however many minutes he plays, 30, 35 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, this year, if you want to get into specifics, this screen navigation is just so much better. He's getting around them. Teams, I think early on in the season tried to test him by putting him into space and putting him into actions, pin downs, that type of thing while he's guarding guys off the ball. He's getting around those. And his ability to be in help and to play passing lanes is the best that I've ever seen it. And we always, I think, when he came into the league, just watching him in college, thought, oh, he's got the tools.
Yep.
He's so lightning quick and he's so fast and he's so good with his hands. He can play passing lanes all day if he wants to, but that's not what makes you a good NBA defender. You have to lock in on the ball as well. So I think really just everything about his game has been elevated on defense, but mostly I think the number one thing is just he's just more engaged out there.
Yeah. And I think that engagement, some people like to use the word effort too. There's more effort put behind it to be locked in, to be engaged. But I also think this is something I always go back to. I always said De'Aaron was never taught how to, and this isn't only De'Aaron. I think this goes for AAU basketball, and then even in college when you try and play in systems, sometimes you just put a zone out there just to make a guy look good, whatever. He's going to get to the next level because of his size, whatever. With De'Aaron, I never thought that he was taught how to play basketball the right way. And so then in Sacramento, no one was trying to actually develop and teach him different fundamentals, techniques. And Mike Brown comes in and just polishes his game. And I guess
his connection with Luke Laux has helped too.
Absolutely.
I think.
And I think with Mike Brown and this coaching staff, we got to give a lot of credit to the way that they came in.
Big time. Yeah. When Mike Brown takes those quick timeouts, like 30 seconds into a quarter, my immediate thought, because I used to be a coach. I used to be an assistant coach at the high school level. And sometimes you're really afraid of overcoaching because these kids will tune you out. If you harp on the same thing over and over, they'll tune you out. If you try to do too much and talk too much to them, they just tune you out. These are professional basketball players. They're paid hundreds of millions of dollars to play a child's game. I don't think many of us think that they would be willing to be as receptive to somebody when they do that. But I think it speaks to the character of the team and the staff knowing how to read the room. Like, oh, these guys want this. So let's hold them accountable. Let's hop into drills if we need to. Let's take these timeouts 15 seconds into a quarter. If that's what they want, that's what they'll get. And really credit to everybody involved. Like it hasn't worn thin and hasn't worn anybody down. And Mike Brown continues to take his signature timeouts.
Dude, he has. And I think it helps too that your two best guys, Sabonis and Fox, are down with it. Yeah, right? Because 100%. If those two are coachable, I think it makes it way easier for the coaching staff to be able to coach the other guys.
It's contagious, right? It's like those guys, other guys are noticing, oh, they believe, they're buying in. Okay, well, then let's all buy in. And then once everyone's starting to buy in and there's winning going on, it's crazy what that can do for a team. It doesn't even matter if your guys even are down the bench, not playing. Yeah. You're still engaged and in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy. I just... the vibes with this team, they are emanating throughout the entire fan base. You can just see it. I mean, even before the season, the clip of Mike Brown sprinting and telling
turn on the effing jets.
Yeah, turn the effing jets on, right?
Oh, that fires me up.
Oh yeah, it's like Deuce is standing up, people. He's standing up right now.
Jordy Fernandez
on the live stream. Oh, dude, I love Jordy.
Yeah, remember Summer League training camp? He's like,
I don't give 3, 4.
Yeah, I don't give 4 F's about winning or losing. It's about how we win and how we lose.
This is an effing business trip.
That man is 100% head coach material because you kind of have to be like a sociopath to be a head coach. And when Keegan hit the Murray Miracle in Vegas, that he didn't even react. He just stood there. And I'm like, yeah, like that guy's going to be a head coach one day. And, it was just a couple weeks ago when the Hawks had that opening, he was named as a candidate. I mean, you got to think about it. He's the associate head coach of this team. And then a chair down, you have Jay Triano, who has so much experience. And then a chair down from him, you got Luke Laux. And then the behind the bench people, Lindsey Harding, Doug Christie. Like this coaching staff has so much depth, and the amount of investment that they've put into the coaching staff is I think it's probably the main reason why outside of these guys actually playing the game that they are playing as well as they are is because they have the proper people in place to put them in a position to succeed.
They also employ a full-time mental strength coach too.
Oh yeah, you talked to him the other day.
That Mike Brown is a big. Mike Brown brought him on, and I guess he had told him years ago, like when I get a job, I'm hiring you. He's like, I've heard that before. Yeah. Brought him on, and he's had a big impact too, working with the players too. So that's really cool. One thing you said, the Murray Miracle.
Yeah.
So can we just acknowledge the fact that only in Sacramento would we call something the Murray Miracle that happened in summer league, and none of us flinched. Like, yeah, that was a miracle.
Yeah,
what a game.
Yeah, awesome game.
No other fan base talks about a summer league game like we do.
Mhm.
Okay, but that's what's cool about this too, you guys, is that we'll appreciate the Murray Miracle also to where the Kings are now in the second seed, where of course there's going to be parts of the fan base that are like, oh yeah, no, we can win the championship now.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be parts of the fan base like, oh, this is a fluke. And then there's the middle ground, the mostly, I'll just say mostly realistic crew, right?
Mhm.
No, I'm not even
the cowards. Yeah, the cowardly bunch.
No,
You're in that
I'm
category.
kidding.
I'm
all
with
of
I'm with
us.
Mo though.
Yeah,
We've been in the same
Thank
same
you.
boat since the preseason.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Really?
Yeah.
Shut your mouth. What?
Miss, like, I think 36 wins, 37 wins. The West is tough. I'm over here going, I think best case 43, 44. I mean,
Okay, here's my thing. My thought process though on the Western Conference I'm sorry, the Kings haven't made a postseason in 16 years. So we thought maybe this first year with the first year head coach, first year here in Sacramento head coach and Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox, who only showed inconsistent signs through his first 5 seasons, that all of a sudden the Kings were going to take this leap.
well, I didn't think this leap, but I mean,
I said play-in
I
conversation.
think this is just one of those days you need to go, oh, maybe I should listen to Deuce a little more when he's talking about things, because the one thing I said, what did I say before the season about the West? I said, the difference between like 3 and 11 is not much.
You
And
said
what
that?
Do you know?
Okay, now here's my one thing.
God, like,
Jrue, I love that Drew's here. Jrue, my one thing is with the Western Conference, what I said, I was like, hey, expect a lot of these teams to change, by the trade deadline. There's no way they're going to. And then, of course, they changed. Like, even the Lakers changed, but it wasn't enough to, and I mean, LeBron James is also hurt, but it just wasn't enough to make that push. And the Kings are also a much better basketball team than we had even expected them to be.
Yeah. There was a lot of damage done to those teams record-wise early on in the season.
Yep.
Load management, injuries.
Punches in the face.
Horrible roster building before they were gifted a lifeline by the league, the Lakers.
Yeah.
You can't always account for that. And it's so unpredictable, but hey, we'll take it. I'm with Morgan though. I was not expecting this though. Second seed, 38 wins on March 8th is insanity.
Do you remember what you were thinking, though, like a win total before the season?
Yeah. I listened to that last night. I think I was saying like 40-ish wins.
Okay.
We're
and that's very realistic.
That's crazy.
That is so realistic. And you were still around the 41. Or
my most unrealistic take I've ever had in my life. I'm so embarrassed by this.
What?
The year they won 39.
Oh yeah.
The year after, I was like, dude.
Yep. Idiot.
They 48, 50. I don't know. Like, I was all in. I was like, dude. Like, Luke Walton, I don't know if he's a good coach, but I know he's gonna be able to connect with the guys. And I think they need someone that can connect. Jaeger wasn't connecting with them.
Right.
I bought into that, and
that's okay.
Let's just say I fell hard after that.
No, and that
hurts.
And sometimes we do that, but that's why I think the funnest thing about this season is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
With even when, let's just say, the shot isn't falling for the Kings and their offense, there's other things that they can control. And even if their defense, they don't have the best individuals defenders on this squad, their team defense is carrying them to another level. But do you think they can do that in the postseason with this type of defense?
The postseason is going to be very, very different. The Kings are currently 25th in defensive rating, I think. On your season preview, we were hoping for 20th.
Hey,
what do you think about Zach Lewis suggesting that they're better defensively than maybe their rating suggests?
I would agree with that because their defensive rating takes a leap in the fourth quarter. They really lock down and they get stops when they really need to in the clutch. So I would agree with that. I also agree with him on that same podcast. He was saying they're probably a legit wing away, and that was something that we also talked about before the season. This team is probably a legitimate two-way wing away from actually being a contender, like a real contender. But yeah, I think they're a little bit better defensively simply because the process is fine. And I did a breakdown from the Timberwolves game because the Kings were getting lit up because they were giving up corner threes like crazy. The rotations were fine. I just think in situations like that, good offense is always going to be good defense usually. And also you go as far as your personnel takes you. When the Timberwolves scheme up and they put a small in the corner so that a small has to rotate over to help on the big rolling, and then that small then has to close out. Look, Davion Mitchell, love him. Defensive wizard. But if you're flying at a guy who's 6'6" and taking a corner three, you're not going to do much with the contest. So I think the process is totally fine on defense, and it'll be different in a 7-game series simply because, I mean, it's Mike Brown time, baby. Like, he's going to have like 17 different defenses. We're only just seeing that just now. It was that Clippers game was the first time when he went to a zone for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And how do you think that's looked? He did that last game too.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine to just show a little bit of that every now and then, to throw teams off balance and to really just stop straight line drives, because those drive me nuts as a guy watching this team. And I think that certainly helps. You can also hide somebody in foul trouble doing that as well. And Sabonis obviously is so valuable. You got to be able to hide him if he's on the hook for a couple of fouls early. And it really makes it a lot easier on this group if they don't have to fly and rotate as much, and you keep guys in certain spots. So packing the paint with the zone, I'm down with it. It's just these guys are pros, and guys are going to eventually hit shots. You can't play zone for an entire game.
No.
So I expect to see a lot more, though. I mean, last year with the Warriors, he was running 2-3, 3-2, a box and one. He was going like matchup zone.
Yeah.
And he was also,
We've seen that too this year.
Yeah, we
Sacramento.
have. And in the 2019 finals, Nick Nurse went to a triangle and 2 because he's a madman. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody pulls that out again.
And I remember the box and one, and didn't the Warriors pull that out and Mike Brown throw that at them when they had not even really practiced it before, and they were like, okay, hey, we're all pros. We know what a box and one is, so we're going to throw it at them. And it ended up working a little bit more. But I think it's what else is crazy about the NBA. It seems like other teams are using zones a lot more lately.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We're all roughly the same age in here. You guys remember the illegal defense?
Oh yeah.
You used to not even be able to play a zone. And now that they've been able to add that, teams are starting to, we didn't see it for the first like 10 years when they started letting teams do it again.
Yeah.
And now we see it all the time. And I do think it's really interesting, like just from an X's and O's standpoint. I love that stuff, like the kitchen sink being thrown at teams. And then how does this team counter it? This league's full of counters, right? Like you got to find out how to counter this and counter that. I'm really, really interested to see teams just throw junk at one another in the playoffs and see how they deal with it. If you looked at that Clippers versus Kings game, the 176-175 game, that was like an entire playoff series condensed into one game. Both coaches were throwing everything at one another. Both teams were going zone, different types of zones. They were doing different, like pick and roll coverages. The Clippers had Nick Batum face guarding De'Aaron Fox for 90 feet. Like all this stuff was happening in that game. And I thought that game was so important because this is what we're going to see in April and potentially May. So it's better to know now how you're going to deal with it and have tape on it now than as opposed to later. Let's
talk more about that coming up. Drew's hanging out with us, that local guy. We got to take a break on the radio side, but we're always live. YouTube.com/Sactown Sports 1140. It's Deuce and Mo, Sactown Sports 1140, SactownSports.com. Boom. All right.
Let's talk more Davion Mitchell one coming up, but also I was going to ask you about Kessler Edwards. You know how everyone went pretty wild after that?
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards stopper game. I mean, let's be real. I think a lot of people are dramatic, but at the same time, we saw some good stuff from him. Do you like what you're seeing?
Yeah.
What you saw?
Look, I'm a Kessler Edwards stan because I was really high on him in the pre-draft process that year. And also he played in the WCC.
How'd St. Mary's do yesterday?
I don't want to talk about St. Mary's, but I am a WCC enthusiast, and Kessler went to Pepperdine, and so I got to see him 2 times a year for a couple of years. I'm excited to see what else he can do. I thought he was really, really good in those minutes guarding Ant Edwards, and then also hit that spot up 3. That was huge as well. I mean, shows me that guy's ready to play, and he's got a ton of really cool low cost upside swing by Monty McNair.
I love watching some of these lengthy, young players go out there. Last night we were calling a Stockton Kings game, and they added a guy, John Butler Jr., who is with the Portland Trailblazers, but they don't have a G League team.
Yeah, so the 7'3" dude.
Yes, and watching him he's skinny. He's already added on like almost 20 pounds, but it just the length that he adds of even just blocking a shot.
He moves pretty well for a guy
Right,
his size.
Yeah, it's
right.
pretty
He can move laterally and everything. And I just feel like with Kessler Edwards, like having that length, having that wingspan, the NBA is going in that direction of seeing how much value those type of bodies, those type of guys have.
Yeah. I remember seeing John Butler when he was at Florida State as a freshman, and I was like, dude, that guy's probably like 150 soaking wet. Like, he's so skinny, but the way he moves, I'm just like, yeah, he's a physical freak. I wonder if he's going to stick around. And he's definitely Leonard Hamilton, their coach. He's got a type. I mean, Jonathan Isaac, Scotty Barnes, like those guys are just prodigious, like length and just defensive ability. So he fit the bill there. And they had some talent come in along with him. But when he left, I was like, that's interesting. And then, like now he's on a 2-way, but, yeah, I'll be interested to see how he does with the team the rest of the season. Might be an important ad for the postseason run, right? For the Stockton Kings, right? Like
number 1 seed right now.
Yeah,
they feel good.
Oh yeah.
It's
how's my guy Keon? I mean, I see the highlights, but how's my guy Keon doing?
I think he's getting better and better. I do.
Every game.
He's got to be more aggressive offensively too. I know Bobby Jackson was telling us he wants him to take like 9 threes a game, which would be great.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been knocking it down efficiently.
He's capable.
Yeah.
He's just got to look for his a little bit more on the offensive end because, I mean, we know what he can do defensively, long, get in the passing lanes, block some shots. But offensively, like we saw a game like a week ago, I think it was against the Cleveland Charge. He was just creating for himself, like looking so smooth, knocking down threes. And it's like, and that was one of the better teams that they were playing against. And it's like, you have this, Keon.
I think he could be a Terrence Davis replacement next year if they don't re-sign TD.
Yeah. But with like way more defensive upside.
Right.
His instincts.
That's what I'm
off
saying,
the
man.
charts. Like in summer league, he was making plays where I was like I was thinking, like if I saw something coming, I'd be like, oh, if he does this, that's a steal. And he did the thing that I was thinking, and I'm like, okay, this guy.
If you
this
do
guy
what
just,
Jrue thinks,
well,
you're gonna be
great point.
What I think.
Yeah.
What I think, not what I do. I was never that physically gifted.
So do you still
do
watch? I mean, you watch college basketball all the time too. So how do you have time to watch? Like keep up on college, the Kings. You watch a lot of NBA too.
Yeah. I try to, like the primetime games mostly. Really are the only ones that I'll take a peek in every now and then with those, but mostly during the college basketball season, it's basically just the Kings in college basketball.
Wow.
I love college hoops. So I bought my tickets for next week at Golden One for the March Madness game like a year out. My friend and I did that like a year out. Like, and we were so bummed in 2020 when it was canceled because they were supposed to be here in 2020. Yeah. And a lot of bracketologists had St. Mary's on like the 6 or 7 line, and some of them had them here in Sacramento. And I was like, dude, if they get slotted in Sacramento, I will lose my mind. And then they literally canceled the tournament the week before. So
that's
kind of a bummer. Yeah. But I'm excited. It's gonna be a fun tournament.
Did you go last time it was here? In
2017? Yeah.
That was wild. I remember St. Patrick's Day,
dude,
downtown.
Oh,
yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, I drank.
Oh, a lot of day drinking. The day drinking that day was next level.
I mean, they kick you out after the first session of games, right? And then you have to come in for the second session.
Yeah.
They give you like an hour break. My friend and I walked out towards that Doco sign by Sauced.
Yeah.
All of K Street.
Yep.
It's just people, and not just people from here, but people from Rhode Island and Oregon,
dude, and
UCLA, Cincinnati.
And now it's grown a little bit more since that time. So it will be.
It's gonna be wild.
Oh yeah. Do you watch women's college hoops too, or just men's?
Not as much, but I follow the big names.
Like
I wonder if Naima's in the chat right now are watching, because our friend Naima from Cowbell Talk, she's like her and our buddy Mark Schindler.
Yeah.
Hoopers?
The only 2 people who I will trust when it comes to well, I trust some other people, but when it comes to like women's hoops,
cool.
They do a lot of groundwork and they tweet a lot about the women's game. So I always listen to them, and that's how I follow women's college basketball. But yeah,
Sac State, Big Sky Conference Championship
2 p.m.
He's got the crew neck on. I love it.
Hell yeah.
That's why I'm repping. Yeah. But yeah, Caitlin Clark's obviously like the big name.
Yeah.
Right.
She's gonna be crazy when she gets to the league.
Stand by. There we go.
Sactown Sports Headlines.
I'm Christopher Lott with your Sactown Sports Headlines. Sacramento Kings are now second in the Western Conference after the Lakers' 112-103 win over the Memphis Grizzlies last night. Kings are currently tied with the Grizzlies with 38 wins and 26 losses. For more information on the Kings playoffs race, check out our Sacramento Kings insider, Frankie Cardoselli, on his piece for the Kings' path to the playoffs on SactownSports.com. Baltimore Ravens have franchise tag quarterback Lamar Jackson after neither side could come to an agreement on a long-term contract. For all of your franchise tag news, check out Emil Fergosa on SactownSports.com. It is 12:30. Time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, who's dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. And now more with Deuce, Mo, and Jrue.
Where's that? I got turntables and a microphone. Where's that?
I have not heard this song in
Wait.
so long.
Got it. It took me a second to like click.
Wow.
Brain.
Chris, you're pulling them.
You know, there's not a lot of songs with talking about the number 2.
Yeah.
I could find more. You can go with 2, Deuce, Poop.
That doesn't count. Doesn't count.
He
Doesn't
laughed.
count. Of course, he laughs at that. Juice Mason, Morgan Reagan, that local
Yeah, there's
guy,
a lot of poop songs out there.
Okay.
aka Jrue in the building. You know something I want to ask you? How you watch basketball, right? You obviously you played it, you've coached it, you know the game. You do great breakdowns on some of the stuff the Kings are running. If someone wanted to start doing that, like what would you advise them? They want to dive in, they want to learn that and be able to see the game. Is it watching a lot? Is it looking up? Like, how did you get into it?
Well, for me, playing and coaching obviously helped. That's the ultimate shortcut, is when you're forced to. And then for me as a player, I think the thing that really made me accelerate the whole learning process of it was I used to just shoot the ball a lot growing up. And then once I realized my growth spurt was not going to be as big as a lot of these other dudes who were going D1 and whatnot, I was like, all right, I should probably change the way I play. So I had to turn myself into a point guard, and that really helped me learn the game that way. And then obviously coaching helps you learn it from a completely different perspective. But if I'm somebody who wanted to learn more about the X's and O's and the actions and all that stuff to see what's really happening out there, because I think many of us we see ball.
Yes.
Hoop. Ball goes in the hoop.
It's in. That's it.
That's the primary objective, right? And so I totally understand. And you want to watch these stars do what they do. And the NBA is very ISO heavy most of the time. So, you know, like that's what's glorified, or like that's what's posted out there, is when these guys go ISO and they do these cool things. First thing I would do if I wanted to learn the game and the X's and O's is I would just not watch the ball. I would just watch the other 8 guys on the court besides the dude with the ball and the dude guarding the ball. And that will lead you to realize that, oh, wow, like that guy catching the ball here and then doing this and then getting the ball there, and that's how they scored, was not an accident. This was a set play. And that was the one thing I had to, and it's tough. You have to really, really train yourself to not watch the ball. But I mean, you know, I'm always in the film room. So, you know,
I know you are.
So, you know, like all the film room sessions when I was a coach and stuff like that, I mean, I was running around, you know, scouting teams and whatnot for playoffs and things like that. Those last couple of years I was coaching, and all the film that I watched, you know, my old high school head coach, who was also the coach that I coached under when I went back to coach my old high school, shout out to Tony Phillips, my high school head coach. I hope he's listening right now.
You went to El Camino, right?
I went to El Camino, yeah.
Wait, did you played with Cole?
No,
No,
Cole was before my time.
Okay.
Cole, I played with his brother.
Oh,
Played with
that's
his little
right.
brother, Brett. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Very inside there, by the way. My old roommate.
Yeah.
Oh, that Cole.
Yeah.
Aw.
Cole went to. Yeah.
Yeah, Cole was freaking. He was an athlete.
But let's be honest,
Dude.
you'd get buckets on him now.
No. Cole's a bucket, man. Cole's a bucket. I'm not even gonna entertain that. Cole would whoop me like 1-on-1 anytime he would. Dude was just a freaking athlete. But yeah, you know, my old coach, he would be like, all right, yeah, go film this team. And like, you bring me a scouting report. I got all these, you know, like all the other coaches had a whole bunch of teams to scout for playoffs, because we were scouting not just the teams that we most likely would play, but we were prepared for any scenario. We would go and like scout like multiple teams, each coach. And so I had to like present like 3 or 4 scouting reports to him before playoffs, just in case. And when I did that, the 2 years that I was on the varsity staff towards the end of each season, I was just like, wow, now I see the game in a completely different way. And like now when I watch games, it's like I can only watch that way. So,
Dude,
yeah.
So when you go back,
Yeah.
but when you go back and watch a Kings game, you're pausing a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And KFR, shout out to Kings Film Room.
Yes.
Fresno's finest.
yes.
Shout out to the 559. I don't know if they have internet out there.
No, I was gonna say
if
there's
he's-
not a lot.
yeah.
I mean, saying Fresno's finest isn't really saying much, but no, I mean he's great. Skylar is great.
And if he's got a fast enough internet connection, hopefully he's listening right now.
Oh my god.
But he and I have talked about this, and I think you actually asked us this at a game. You were like, Mo asked us, when you guys watch games, do you guys just like memorize like what happens out there, and then you just post it? And me and him both kind of looked at each other and said, yeah. And Mo's like, oh, I write everything down. I like timestamp it and stuff, and then I can go back. You know, KFR does so much work with the YouTube side of things and tweeting things out. I think he's almost exclusively left the in-game clipping to me when I'm able to do it. And he goes back and he watches the games afterwards, and now almost exclusively posts clips after games because he can just see the game better that way. So
Dude, I just love that you guys do this because it just, one, as Kings fans, to have this awesome content, so many great content creators, and you guys are a part of that, and you're helping fans better understand the game. You're helping us better understand the game. It's great.
That's what I was going to say, because like, you know, we have an instant reaction podcast that we're pretty much doing off of these games.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we miss. And when I say miss, I just mean in detail, right? Like there's just these little details that I can go back the next day and or go on Twitter and see you or KFR or I mean Will Z, another guy that just even throws out stats that like lead me to go, oh yeah, well that's why this, you know, so and so did still have a good game or whatever it may be. And but I remember even back as a player, I wish I had learned how to watch the game and study the game the way that you knew, like when you were on the coaching staff and everything. And I think about these Kings players now, and I think there's so many years, you guys, that no one was, again, teaching them even how to watch the game, how to learn the game the right way, not just on the floor, but even through the film room.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the discipline in all of these players, and everyone's buying into this discipline because they are like actually understanding what can work, even if you don't have a whole bunch of Kevin Durant's on your team.
Right. Yeah. You obviously need the buy-in, but also the mental capacity to soak that stuff all up as well. And I mean, you look at the additions to the team over the offseason, all really high IQ guys, and you get the current guys, the guys who were already on the roster when those guys came in, and those guys have bought in, and I mean Harrison, De'Aaron, Domas, the main three guys that were holdovers, obviously all really high level players that just know the game and just feel the game very well. It was a good mix, and I mean, look, if you've been paying attention to the Kings offense this season, they have layered on so many things. It's a new thing every game, or at least every other game with this team, where they have a counter that they put into place that they've added on top of their base like concepts. And you don't do that with just any group. You know, you have to have guys that think and feel the game very, very well. And I mean, the guys that we just named that were added to the team, they've been a big reason for that. And also another plug for KFR. Look, if you haven't subscribed to his Patreon, do it, because he's got the entire Kings playbook. He's on his Patreon with videos so that you can see the plays. I mean, what are you doing if you haven't subscribed to the Patreon?
Every opponent, every team, every scout should be subscribing to his Patreon.
Yeah, people yell at him. People yell at him on YouTube comments and like on Twitter. They're like, "Hey, you're doing the scouting for other teams. What's your problem, guy?" and it's like, wait, are you guys not aware that scouts get paid a lot of money to go to games and to scout teams themselves? Do you really think a scout who cared about job security would just go onto YouTube and say Kings offense and then goes to a KFR video? Come on, people.
I mean, I would do that if I was a scout.
Make some side money. So what do you, I know you do voice acting. What do you want to do because you know basketball? Like, do you want to work in basketball, or do you just kind of like doing it this way? You just have fun?
I like doing it this way. It's a labor of love, and I like it when it's like that. If it became a job, because I've heard some crazy stories about what coaches have had to do, and not even at the NBA level.
But you could be just dive into being a content creator all the time, though.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know.
It's not like it's an easy life.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just trying to understand what he wants. I don't know. Maybe you're just happy in life. And that's fine too. I'm not saying you're not. I just, you're just a really talented person.
Yes.
It's like, you can break down the game. You're funny. You do voice acting. Like,
dude, I mean,
talent.
if I had billions of dollars, I wish I could just pay you to create content all the time. Because truly, like I said, we learn from the content that you create. Kings fans get to learn from the content that you create,
Yeah.
but it's so good. You're so talented in so many different ways. So yeah, please don't ever stop.
Yeah, thank you so much. That means a lot, especially coming from you both. But today, especially from Morgan, because it's International.
Thank
we
you.
have to acknowledge
Thank you.
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, definitely, it's probably the acting thing that I want to do long
Hell
term.
yeah.
It's not easy. It's
You've
so
been in commercials.
It's I've done, and I do on camera acting as well.
Yeah.
So I do on camera and voiceover, but it's not easy. It's super competitive. So I'm kind of in it for the long haul. And Arby's for now pays the bills. Shout out to my boss Kevin, giving me a long lunch break so I could be here.
Hell yeah,
Be on
Kev.
Deuce and Mo. So big shout out to Kev. Hopefully the store's not too slammed, but I don't know. It's
Yeah.
Arby's. I don't know who goes to
Lunchtime.
Arby's. Yeah, it is lunchtime.
It is
Not for me.
lunchtime.
Although who's got Arby's at the top of their list for lunch each day, right?
Hopefully, they're not a sponsor right now.
Oh man. Yeah, we probably should have. Yeah, we probably should have done some research on that
You said
side.
who cares?
Drew, I appreciate you joining us today, man. Thanks so much for coming in. We'll have to do this again too,
Oh,
man,
of
if you're
course.
down.
I 100% I would be down. Thank you so much for having me. And
Absolutely.
thank you for coming back to the airwaves. Seriously, I'm so happy for
Well, we'll
you
see
guys.
how long we're here, but yeah, for sure.
So
for
proud.
sure.
Everybody
For sure.
loves that you're back.
I do get offended.
You will be
by
here
that.
forever.
I get offended
Why?
because it's like we do a podcast. Is that not good enough for people? We go live after games. It's like, hey, congrats, you're back. I'm like, I didn't go anywhere.
You know what? No. What I'll say, I think some people just like the full circle thing about
Okay,
this
all
either
right.
way. It's just
So
like,
he's being nice. Is what you're
yeah,
saying?
we were screwed over 7 years
Okay.
ago.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Now it's like,
yeah,
hey,
okay.
yeah,
okay.
thanks,
So
Drew.
he's
Of
cool.
course.
Yeah, Drew's
Okay.
good. Drew's on the good list.
All right.
Thanks
Cool.
so
Good
much.
to know.